Globally, we are seeing people go independent. Creatives go independent.
To quit your 9 to 5 to again pursue your dream, is there a right way to do it?
You have to be capable of being independent so that when the axe finally drops, you're in a good place.
Welcome to Creative Chaos, and today we have a very special guest, and just two words describe this guy, the king of radio, FatBoy. The Creative Chaos. The shortest intro perhaps in the history of broadcast.
Now the shortest intro was, ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Well, I'm glad you guys invited me to be on this podcast. And I've been keenly following what you guys have been doing, and it looks very interesting. And so, looking forward to this.
So we have a wall here that we call the trauma wall, or the chaotic wall. Just look at it and give us three things that you feel resonate with your mental state.
Or traumatize you.
Well, I like the one I'm looking at here, make it pop. I resonate with that. I mean, it's about taking chances and seizing the moment and opportunities.
Yes.
And really that it's up to you. Let's see. I'm still rendering.
What's the story?
Well, I've dabbled in the video space as well.
Yes.
And sometimes when you're doing a lot of work, some of that work, to rendering essentially means, for those who don't know, is to just outputting the final product after you've lined everything up, put in all the effects and all the
Is it a
titles.
good
and
thing
everything.
or a bad thing for you?
No. So essentially, it's at the point where you're ready to export the final product, but then depending on how fast or slow your machine is, it can take time. And if you're working on a deadline and you have a client that needs that project urgently, then for them to hear you say that you're still rendering, that can be quite frustrating for them.
The third one and last one?
All right. File got corrupted. Man, oh man. It's the information age, and we live and die by our data. And so to get to where you're trying to open a file and then you just can't because it's corrupted, man, you want to kill yourself, which is why I normally back up 3 times. I back up on 3 separate external hard drives, and I also back up to a cloud. Okay. And especially since, I run a digital media operation, it's even more important that I have backups of backups and backups. So the last thing you'll ever hear me say, at least now, is that a file got corrupted. And if it does ever happen, I'll have my backups.
Awesome. So my first question, I want to hear from you, and it's good you're a living example of this, actually. Globally, we are seeing people go independent. Creatives go independent. We're seeing across the board, people are preferring to work from home. I guess that's a result of some of the effects of the pandemic. Opened up people's minds and things like that. You led the infamous rebellion at Sanyu FM.
Although, to be fair, that's... and I'll take this opportunity to clear the air on that. Again, is that I absolutely did not lead any rebellion.
Yes.
In fact, I was just sort of caught up in the wave. The conspiracy, as I will call it, because it was a conspiracy for those who eventually found out what happened, was that there were people in middle management that sort of put the plan together and then sort of brought it to the other staff, the rest of the general staff. And we kind of just felt compelled to go along with it. And I too, passively, mostly just out of solidarity. I'm like, everyone's doing it. All right, cool, I'll do it. Next thing I know, I'm in the headlines. I led a strike. I'm the ringleader. I'm like Al-Qaeda. I'm like...
Everybody needs a scapegoat.
I'm like, what the hell is this?
Villain.
That was quite shocking. But regardless, I mean, what happened did happen, and it led me to go into a different direction where now I am operating independently. And I don't know if it was in a way timely because of the trends that we are seeing in the media now, where you're really seeing a shift away from following brands and media organizations and institutions to more following of personalities. We're kind of seeing an implosion in the media space right now, and it's really a time of reckoning. for organized media. Even in the West, you're now seeing massive layoffs, consolidations. It's just the media isn't really making as much sense as it used to in this social media age, where everyone with a smart device is a media organization unto themselves.
Storyteller.
You get it? Because what is media ultimately, especially if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, it is you try to build an audience that listens to you and respects you, over whom you have some influence, and you take that audience to an advertiser and say, do you want to promote this product? Well, I speak to the audience you want, so here you go. Now, a person on his bed with his phone, with his TikTok, or a girl can have an equal to or even larger following than a media organization that employs 50 people and that incurs hundreds of millions in running costs annually. And yet, when an advertiser is thinking, okay, so who do I consult, who do I engage with to reach a certain audience, at the end of the day, they're just going to be looking at the raw final numbers, and they will find that the girl on TikTok has more of a following than an established radio station, news publication, or TV station. So the math is simple. At that point, a lot of the resources end up getting channeled into the digital space, and that's what you see happening.
So is it a trend or an actual option? Quitting your 9 to 5? Is it a thing or?
I don't think it's an option at this point. Really, whatever your field of endeavor is.
As a creative?
Even if, okay, so as a creative, it goes without saying. You kind of have to, because your work is a lot more, I don't want to use the word unstable, but it's more susceptible to feeling the effects of change. Because in the creative arena, money constantly keeps shifting. There's always reprioritization. Companies doing this today, wanting to do something else tomorrow. And so if you're not sort of equipped with the tools to be able to stand on your feet, you can very easily find yourself, out in the cold, right? At least if you've taken some necessary steps to be somewhat independent, you'll have a leg to stand on in the event that you get caught up in that kind of a change. And you're seeing this happening, like I was mentioning earlier, with even the major international news corporations who are now releasing some of their long-serving personalities. It's just becoming unsustainable. I don't even think, I lost my job, but I don't even know if they'd still keep me if I was there, because I was fairly expensive. By the time I'd been working there for 20 years, the money that they were paying me, I don't know that it makes economic sense to pay a radio personality in this day and age, with this economy, with the constriction
in Uganda,
with the constriction of advertising that we're seeing, sort of across the board, with resources now shifting more into the digital realm.
Yes.
So you kind of have to always think in terms of, okay, how can I protect myself from these shifts and these changes? And becoming independent is really not an option at this point. You have to be capable of being independent so that when the axe finally drops, you're in a good place. I mean, just look at the banking sector. Look at the mayhem in the banking sector today. And you would have thought banking is
stable.
So stable. Yeah. Like it's one of the jobs you get into it, you die in it, right? As long as you don't do anything crazy. And yet now we're seeing a lot of instability. We're hearing stories of some companies some major banks trying to, relinquish some of their retail holdings and so forth, and looking at different ways of reorganizing. So regardless of your field, you always have to be a step ahead to say, okay, in the event of the unexpected, how do I land? How do I move?
Yeah,
it's important to think about that. So for me, I find that I sort of got thrown into that deep end. But even then, I was prepared for it. I was prepared because you will notice within just a few months of me losing that job, I'd started a business. I'd started a radio station. And the reason is all that, I had the foundation of it already in place. And people like to say, oh, being an employee is a bad thing. If you're an employee, it means you lack ambition. Actually, no, I think it's very important. It's quite valuable to be an employee. First of all, you gain a lot of experience in certain fields you're in. Also, the security of a steady salary gives you time to research and acquire other skills in other areas. So if you're hustling 9 to 5, looking for how to pay the next bill, even if you're making some progress, you're just not going to have the free time to invest in educating yourself on different things because you're too busy chasing money.
But there's also
if you have a job, you clock out at 6 p.m., you have the rest of the evening to yourself, and you probably, if it's a good paying job, you have some resources that you can spend to, enrolling in some courses and things like that, or doing your own research, and you can even afford to put some of that money aside to invest a little bit in your pet project. Now, in my case, I did all that so that by the time I had lost the job, I already had a studio booth, I had equipment, I had the microphones, I had the software. I essentially had the building blocks of what was going to be the radio station that I now run. Of course, it changed its form as I went on with it, but like the building blocks were there, which I think would not have been possible if it were not for the fact that I had a job. So I'm not going to be among those people that are poo-pooing the idea of having a job. If you have a job, good for you. Yeah. But don't waste the opportunity that the job provides. The job will give you the security of a salary. Use that salary to educate yourself. Use the time that you have away from work when you get to go on leave or on the weekends to study different things, study different technologies, so that should the day come where you either want to resign from the work or you are let go, you know what to do next.
So the toll of quitting, mental, emotional. I remember we had a conversation some time back, and you actually alluded. I mean, you told me that part of your weight loss program was not only a diet issues, but it was also because now you found yourself in this place where you have people to take care of. You have to worry about people's salaries and their welfare and things like that. And just take us through that plunge.
Obviously now that I've been on the other end of the aisle, because when you're an employee, you're always thinking in terms of how the company is supposed to benefit you. You don't pay too much attention to what your employers are going to. You kind of just take it for granted that they have money, and if they're not making you happy, then it's their fault. Obviously, now I'm on the other end of the line where I'm starting to feel that same pressure of, okay, I'm the one that has to make the moves. The responsibility rests on me. What am I doing about it? And that kind of pressure is a lot to deal with. I promise you, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Within a couple of days of starting the radio station, my good friends from the industry are all texting me, so how's it going? How are you making it work? Are you making money? Is there money? Is there money? It's like there's this mentality of there has to be quick money. And if there isn't already money rolling in, then maybe you're a failure. You've made a mistake. I'm here to tell you that I'm here to tell you that the grind is typically going to be a long one. And things aren't going to be falling into place very quickly. You're going to have to be very resilient and patient. And in my case, the resilience and patience obviously takes a toll on your, on your physicality. If you're not taking good care of yourself, you can forget to eat, for example. Sometimes we deliberately skip meals because it's diet. Other times you just skip meals because you forget. You're just caught up in everything you're doing. So in my case, I think there was a lot of that going. So I was trying to do a diet, and at the same time, I was forgetting to eat. So I think my shrinkage was even more pronounced. At some point, I appeared to be very frail and very thin, and that's because of those pressures. And like I said, when you're working a job and you have a guaranteed salary, security. Man, I was just my life before when I had a job, I'd do my show, which was a 4-hour show. And so usually, I'd do the show, and then there'd be maybe 1 or 2 meetings afterwards. Usually by midday, I was done with my day, okay? So from midday, I was done with my day until about 5 a.m. the next day, I had nothing else to do. I would just go home and watch TV, play video games. I was a big gamer in that era. Just comfortable, so man.
You are, again, you said you were pushed, and by the time it happened, you were ready. Now, let's hear from you from a side of wanting to jump yourself. Is there like a better way to do it? Because most people do it emotionally.
You mean like to quit a job?
To quit your 9 to 5, to to again pursue your dream. Is there a right way to do it?
I don't think there's a right way, but I do think there is a right mindset. And the mindset should just be an expectation of hard work, a lot of difficulty, a lot of challenge, several points where you're going to feel like giving up. Like that'll be a nearly daily occurrence. That thought will cross your mind, but you're supposed to just eschew those thoughts and keep powering on. I mean, really, when we look at everyone who's made it, that's how they've done it. Now, the problem with Uganda is that, so in Uganda and in a place like Uganda with so much corruption, quite often the people who appear successful haven't really attained that success through genuine hard work.
No.
A lot of the people who appear successful don't even seem to be working that hard. And so you can get caught up in the illusion that money is just sort of supposed to happen to you. Like, once you make one or two phone calls, one or two good moves, money should just start flowing. And if it isn't, then maybe there's something wrong. Why wouldn't there be something wrong? All these ballers on social media acting like they have it all together.
Overnight.
Yeah.
They don't.
What you don't know is they got a lot of that success and opportunities through nepotism, corruption, connections, or sometimes outright theft or criminality. You know what I mean? And that is why you should never sort of compare yourself against the success of others. Just look at what you're doing. Do you believe in what you're doing? And do you feel that what you're doing is adding value for people? And then just stick with it. And I do believe that the success and the rewards of that success follow.
Creative people are very, very emotional people. And I think it comes with the territory. Like, you have to love what you do. And of course, that love goes sometimes unchecked. It comes with a lot of entitlements. So I think people quit without notice, they burn bridges.
You mean like they just get mad one day and say,
fuck this.
I'm out of here.
I'm out. But that mentality, speak to that mentality.
I mean, yeah, that obviously comes from a place of immaturity. And, I'm not going to, and maybe that's not a fair way of putting it. Look, sometimes you can genuinely feel fed up. You can genuinely feel like you're tired of it. But honestly, wherever possible, you should try to give some thought to how you want to handle the next step. So if you start to feel like, maybe it's not working out for you or this job is not for you, start looking around and start trying to make, new moves and see if there's potential for something different. And should the day come when eventually you're going to just call it a day and call it quits, at least you're not, left completely out in the cold. Your personal circumstances, I'm sure, can influence your decisions also. I mean, look, if, for example, you are a married woman, let's say, you're married to a rich guy, yeah, sure, you can quit a job if you don't like it. And you can comfortably coast along for the next year or even more, assuming you have a husband who's happy to take care of you, which most husbands are. Unfortunately, most wives are not like that. I'm not going to tell your wife, I'm just going to quit my job and just chill and figure things out. She's going to look at you like, excuse me? What's the story here? Chris Rock, the American comedian, had this famous line where he said, if you lose your job, you will lose your woman. She may not lose the day you leave it,
yes,
but the countdown has begun. So she'll give you time. True. And yet, it's so funny because as men, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but if your woman said to you, hey, look, I don't want to work for a while. And you're like, what do you want to do? And she's like, I don't know. Most guys are like, yeah, okay, cool. Like most guys won't mind. Right? But I wish the other gender was as considerate as we are towards them. That would be nice. Because then I think a lot of men would also be in position to explore their dreams and to explore real opportunities without sort of fear of, okay, well, if I quit my job now, how will I feed the family? Because I think that's what keeps a lot of people trapped in jobs they don't like. It's like, wait, I can't quit now because madame's not going to be okay with it.
So you think we should also have the opportunity to be those guys who own boutiques that never break even? So just say,
why not? And it's a good feeling. And I'm glad you brought that up because, as we speak right now, there's a weird controversy that's rocking social media of, someone kind of outed herself regarding how she earns a living. So she's been portrayed as the model of entrepreneurial success. Like for reasons no one can understand, wow, she just has cracked the code. She's this brilliant businesswoman who knows it all. And yet now as the curtain is being revealed, we're starting to see, okay,
The window is narrowing.
I see. So this is we're starting to see what's going on here, you know? And it turns out that a lot of what she does may revolve around certain things people may not entirely agree with.
Yeah.
But a hustle is a hustle, not to knock the hustle itself, but to just the perception of success that we have is like we look at certain people and just assume that they're wiser and smarter than us. But a lot of people are really doing things which you probably wouldn't want to do.
We call them midfielders.
So I'm saying don't get caught up in the fanfare and the imagery of success. I think stay true to yourself.
So it's authentic. No, so for someone like FatBoy, I mean, you're super loud in every sense. And here we are, FatBoy leaves and opens up a media outlet. Expectations. Take me through the mental space. Were you scared?
Yeah, sure. So
the pressure. I mean, you had the leading morning show. You know,
I mean, I had
time, and now you own your own platform.
I guess there are probably two approaches to look at this from. First is, you know, like on the creative and artistic side, like what do I want to do with the career that I've built? Where do I want to take it next? And then if I'm going to turn it into a business, okay, then how do I make the business side of things make sense? Now, my operation was going to be an online operation, which at the time seemed a bit confusing to a lot of people. I should say a lot of people had a lot of doubts as to how viable an online media platform could be, which even then I found it strange people would ask that, given the trends we were already seeing with regards to smartphone proliferation,
Projections, yes.
internet proliferation. If you were to look at the data from UCC, you would see that I believe what I saw at the time in 2020 was every year about 1.5 billion people were getting smartphones. You get what I mean? So with that kind of trajectory, you know, it was just a matter of time before we got to a place where the internet, social media, and smart devices were the way through would be the way through which most people would be consuming media.
Yes.
And now, 4 years later in 2024, it almost seems like it's widely acknowledged. Like at this point, it's not even debated. In fact, it is so widely acknowledged that companies are devoting, or I should say diverting, a significant amount of resources from traditional media to digital media. You know, like the small bars and the small restaurants who would have otherwise gone to the radio stations to promote themselves all use social media now, or will use influencers and so forth. And so, yeah, so from the business side of things, I would like to think that I caught the wave at the right time. Now, that doesn't solve the problem there and then, because now the social media is a wild west. The internet is the wild west. It's unregulated.
It's huge.
It's now huge.
Yeah.
Now I'm not competing with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 radio stations. I'm competing with 1.5 million Ugandans who are coming onto social media every year. That is now my new competition. Should they open up a Facebook account, a Twitter account, Snapchat, TikTok account? They're now all my competition, right?
Yeah.
And
Attention.
Exactly, because it's an attention economy. We sell attention to our customers, to our business partners and clients. And now this attention is being split not just among media houses, but also any random person with a phone, right? Now, a lot of these individuals are yet to figure out how to capitalize on that and to monetize that. And I do think there's opportunity for a lot of education and training in that area. You'd really rather send a kid to school to learn how to be to monetize social media rather than to send them to, say, journalism school. Because, seriously.
That's interesting, eh?
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because journalism is a dying industry. I'm being 100.
Old school journalism or citizen journalism?
No. Okay, so institutional journalism.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It is morphing. Is it morphing or dying?
Well, the business model of journalism is dying, where you have a huge newsroom of 20, 30 journalists.
It's gone. It's gone.
Like you can't make it work now. It's too expensive, and the resources that would have sustained that sort of operation now don't exist. You know, so now, like I mentioned earlier, you're competing with a guy with a smartphone who will usually be first on the scene. That you will not be able to deploy a reporter to the scene of an accident faster than someone who is on the scene, will capture it and post it on social media. You get what I mean? So what ends up happening is
freshness.
that exactly. So mainstream media, mainstream journalism ends up just playing a game of catch up to what normal people are posting. There's a joke I like to make all the time. It's like, back in the heyday, I should say the heyday of, say, my radio career, the early to mid 2000s, you would find that we in the radio sphere were the ones dictating conversation. We would discuss a topic on the morning show, and then that's what people will discuss amongst friends for a week. You go to a bar, everyone's like, did you hear what Alex Ndala said today? Did you hear what Tolanya said today? Did you hear what FatBoy said today? Did you hear what Shanice said today? Like, those would be the conversations at the water cooler at the office, at the bar, at church, family gatherings. But now it's inverted, because social media has made everyone a media personality unto themselves. Now you tune into a radio show, and instead of setting trends, you tune into a radio show. Radio shows are now just discussing what people are saying on social media.
Yeah.
Tune into your morning show, any station. Oh, guess what's trending today? Guess who posted this today? Guess what video is everyone's talking about today?
Who's trending? Yes.
Guess who leaked, whose video leaked today?
And coming up, we are going to tell you what.
You get it? Yes. So essentially, I mean, whether for good or for bad, we in the mainstream media essentially are now just following trends. We're now trend followers, we're no longer trend setters. Which means that those of us who are in the media do have the opportunity to be part of that conversation, to also be the trend creators in social media. And so why, at least for me personally, as a personality, I view my activities on social media as part of my work. It's my job. You know, like I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, so what can I do that's interesting on social media today? I won't always have something to say, but what I mean is I consider it to be an important part of my work and my function. And you might think this is only important for people in media, but this is important for people in any field. You cannot operate a restaurant today unless you're going to have a good social media presence. You cannot operate a boutique, a bar, a lounge, unless you're going to be active on social media. So to act like social media is the domain of the uneducated or the domain of the people with too much time, well, can you think of anyone who spends more time on social media than Elon Musk? That guy runs 10 different companies, and not small companies, sending rockets out into space. Yes. SpaceX, the most valuable electric vehicle in the electric vehicle company in the world. And I'm meant to understand the most valuable car company in the world, period. And yet the guy is on Twitter constantly, dude is tweeting every something. Minute. You get it? Yes. So what's your excuse? Oh, so you have a master's degree, huh? You're too important to send out a tweet and express thoughts and engage with followers. Well, you're gonna lose out on opportunities to your contemporaries who are going to be active in that area. Look at the Law Society, Isaac Semakade. Part of why he's effective and successful is because he understands the game.
The dynamics, yes.
He understands the game.
Trends,
the guy owns social media. He knows how the game works. Whereas all of his other esteemed colleagues are all like, in their chambers suited up. They're like
land friends.
Let me pick your mind on this.
The guy is going to walk around with the twins.
Brick and Les.
The Slayers.
And get people talking.
Yes.
And use that attention to further his agenda.
Exactly.
It's genius.
Yes. So we live at a time when I stand to be corrected, but I feel like all avenues of expression, any form of expression, are sort of either muzzled or creatively. And I think not just creatively, but I feel like the only space we have left in terms of expression, whether rights or you want to be an activist and whatever it is the creative space. What's your submission on that? I feel like all the other areas are now gagged.
Maybe you can explain to me what you mean.
You can't gather like 100 people and have discourse, and by the time you realize you're all rounded up and all that.
Okay.
Someone once said that you can hide, I think, knowledge and information in an education system, but you can't gag the creative space.
Well, I mean, creativity, the way I think of creativity is that it is a tool to craft a narrative and to tell a story, right? It's an issue of packaging, but ultimately the story you're telling sort of comes from you and comes from your values. And there's a conversation to be had as to whether or not we also need to focus on that side of things. Because what good would it do to have the ability to communicate, to express ideas, and yet those ideas aren't particularly
Actually, my
good?
question was, we used to be apolitical, but because of that, because now the spotlight is on us, we are now forced to actually participate into political discourse and
Choose a side
and
okay.
look polarized. And I follow you heavily. I mean,
Yes,
you understand.
Okay, so
Yes.
now I get you. Right. So there's a lot of, and this is where you kind of have to be careful. On social media, there's a lot of appearances. And so there is also a bit of a cultish aspect to social media where people want to mark territory and sort of mark their domain and claim it as theirs. And so a lot of the virtue signaling you're seeing, political virtue signaling, is part of the scam. So these people that you see making a lot of noise about politics, why are you not talking about this? Why do you not care about this? People who are like tweeting out about corruption every single day, they do it, not all of them, but a good number of them, as a form of self-aggrandizement, as a feeling of importance, to now seeing themselves as authority figures. And I think this has recently been brought to a head where at some point these opinion leaders on social media began to clash. You're
fighting corruption wrong.
Exactly. So it
Should
now
have.
became, who is the better fighter against corruption?
Yeah.
In fact, you're not even fighting corruption. You are corrupt yourself. You're taking money, provide accountability, all this kind of stuff,
Yes,
right? It got really messy, and a lot of people sort of felt lost, like, hey guys, I thought we're all in this together. And there's been a sense of disillusionment where people feel like, okay, so whose side, like the people that are supposed to champion my cause
yeah.
are fighting amongst themselves. And my prediction was that was going to lead to a lot of detachment from people. Because once people notice that the ones claiming to fight for them are no different, then most people are just going to disengage from politics and to just go back to obsessing over football, obsessing over movies, makeup, video games, or whatever interests them. And that circle of noisemakers on social media is just going to shrink ever more with each passing day. Ultimately, I don't even think they wield much influence. If I'm being honest, they make a lot of noise on social media, but I very rarely see it translating into any meaningful change.
Where does that leave the regulators?
Are these people employed or they're self-employed?
So it's part of
Because I look at the time they put in.
It's like some craft, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, some of them we know are either directly or indirectly funded to do this. You know, they're part
So
of.
they're not into the 9 to 5.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys, and I got in trouble with them recently. They were calling me out because I was calling them out. I was saying, you guys do this for a living. You get paid to do this, so at least own it, admit to it, and so that people don't get
and provide accountability.
I didn't even care about the accountability part myself with a lot of these NGOs and CSOs. I'm like, make your money, but don't cross the line to where you're imploring other people's children to put themselves in harm's way just so that you can be seen to be being politically active. Because that's what a lot of these CSOs and some of these NGOs do. It's like, for them, they're measured against, their work is advocacy, And so how do you measure advocacy?
Chaos.
You can't measure it against any real impact because there's never any real impact, let's just be honest. But you can measure it against the engagements on social media, which are now measurable, literally. And so you just write your report, send it to the donor and say, we put out 20 tweets this week and it got so many engagements and so we are impacting the youth. The donor is happy, the donor is going to give you your money. See, and that's fine. I want to be clear. That's fine. That's your hustle. Do it. I'm happy for you. You know, everyone else is finding different ways of making money. And if your way of making money is to create the impression that you're being politically active, go ahead and do it. But if that's going to lead to young people wanting to put themselves in harm's way, which I was a very vocal opponent of the March to Parliament, not because I opposed the how can I say, the message or the spirit of it, but that the loudest advocates of it telling people to go to the streets themselves were not planning to do so and did not do so on that day. But they're sending out those tweets that are going crazy viral every day. They're just doing it for their own clout and for their paycheck in the case of those that are employed by CSOs that are funded by foreigners. I just find it, I found it personally to be a huge scam. And so I did try to call them out on it. And even Isaac Semakade got on board with some of that stuff. And it got messy for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the temperatures have cooled now and there's a bit of a truce among the different factions on social media. So right now we're just watching to see what happens.
fighters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's taking it easy now.
Bring it back.
So the regulators, where does this leave people like, outfits like UCC, the Media Council, the Media Center, people who are supposedly meant to be regulating this space, which, my son can practically open up a radio station on my phone in my house.
You can't do that.
Yes.
So
So how does UCC catch up with a guy like that, and how?
that's a very good question,
You know?
and they are actually trying to, but of course things are moving way faster than they can actually keep up with. They are trying to.
Government is a big machine and it moves slowly, really.
Yeah.
Very slow.
So, because right now they're trying to push sort of digital audio broadcast, which has been in Europe since the 90s, right?
And we're just catching up.
And so we're starting to do it now at really what I would describe as the tail end.
But even digital migration TV was a scam itself. For me, it was pay TV migration. It wasn't really
Imagine that.
digital migration in my view. I think.
So we're kind of
Just
late
live-
to the party.
Yes.
But with regards to say regulating say social media, that one's going to be a bit harder. I do recall that UCC did put out some sort of framework for a requirement for registration for online content creators, bloggers. Did you ever see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if they've ever followed up on it. I've at least not seen any attempts to enforce it because I don't know anyone that's, say, registered as a YouTuber or a blogger by UCC. But it might just be one of those things where they put those laws in place and they may choose when they want to enforce it, depending on when the situation calls for it.
But even outfits like URA, how do you paper trail? How do you a kid who's selling merchandise online, who's selling caps and
That's also
mixtapes? So no,
yeah. That
you
so
know,
yeah.
how do you
and-
tap into that? To beef up the treasury, and I feel like
It's gonna be a bit-
all those are leakages and.
So, and this is something I also don't yet fully understand because we know that several social media platforms do offer monetization
Yes.
Options. For example, YouTube has been paying content creators for many years now. And there are quite a number of Ugandans making good money off of YouTube. I don't know to what extent that is taxed or is even taxable. I don't know how they declare or if they declare their YouTube revenues. So I would have to say there's probably a huge gap in that.
Hence the IFRIS problem. you want to find an effective way of milking a cow, but you don't want to feed the cow so that you can effectively milk it. I think that's
Man, that thing, the whole IFRIS thing really got me. Because obviously, if you're running a formal business,
Yes.
like you have no choice, right? Because if you don't, they'll come for you. And usually, if you're dealing, especially with the bigger companies, corporate companies, you won't even get paid unless you can demonstrate you submit
It's paperwork.
the IFRIS paperwork. But that said, for the traders out there who are not happy with the terms of IFRIS, I didn't quite understand the controversy. It sounded like they thought of it as an additional tax, and yet it seemed to be more of an issue
a
of
miseducation of sorts, I think.
It seemed to be more of an issue of a sort of a new framework for assessing the tax. It is obviously not a tax. It's just a framework for assessing tax and mechanism. I do have my gripes with IFRIS. Of course, you issue the invoice, you have to file the return, then you have to pay the tax, even when the client hasn't paid you. That sucks. It messes up your cash flow significantly. But it is what it is.
Yes.
But as to how, say, the new generation of online
Creatives
entrepreneurs and
exactly,
creatives,
yes.
I don't know. just so that I'm clear, I'm not here saying I wish for them to be taxed. I'm not making that argument. I'm not. That's not my fight. That's not my fight. And if there are people making a good living on social media as influencers, as content creators, I'm happy for them, and I wish them continued success.
You want to make money and drive cars on good roads and things like that, and I think it's a responsibility, really.
Yeah, so they're gonna have to find more robust ways, I think, of capturing all of that data. So, for example, in the case of YouTube, okay, well, normally if you're seeking monetization, you have to submit financial details. I don't know. They could make some sort of requirement that you show compliance with your tax authority before you're granted that permission. It's for them to figure out. I don't know how much thought they've put into it, but I do understand your argument that, yeah, it's sort of unfair. Yes, being a content creator is a wonderful hustle, but then you can't then at the same time, I mean, it's ironic. You're making money off of content complaining about, let's say, state of the roads or state of the hospitals. And yet the money you're making from monetizing your video, you don't want to pay tax on. That makes no sense, right?
I like that we've gone full circle. We started by quitting your job, 9 to 5.
Yes.
And then becoming a creative who pays tax.
Exactly.
So which means you have to be very, very careful on how you lay out your plan and how your plan works, because there's a taxman waiting for you. And as an employee, you are not really ready for this.
I know.
You don't think about it. You don't even...
You don't think about it at all. And and especially since you, as an employee, usually you're not the one paying the tax anyway.
Yeah.
It's done for you. Usually your company, your employing company is the one that remits the payee. Once you become either self-employed or a business owner, you kind of have to remind yourself, oh, wait, I'm the one supposed to file. I'm the one supposed to submit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can forget that you have to be more active in the payment of your taxes. And I mean, if you're not, you can get in trouble for it. And people have.
So in closing...
URA should pay for this segment. As you
right? Podcast sponsored by URA.
Just take us out, take us out. Take home, yes.
I would like you to tell someone out there who's a young creative or an old creative, still employed, enjoying their 9 to 5, and they want to jump the ship, start their own thing. What's the right way to do it? Just there. That's your camera.
Well, I think the right way to do it is to first understand what it is you want to do. Ideally, it should be something that you are good at so that you'd be contributing value. What would be the point of wanting to strike out on your own when you have nothing of value to offer? So find out what you're good at doing, package it nicely, and you can start pushing it even while you are still fully employed. There is nothing to stop you if you are, let's say, a lawyer, from starting your legal YouTube channel where you're offering advice on how to handle certain legal matters or educating the public. I know that there are a lot of pilots. I subscribe to a lot of pilots on YouTube who have channels discussing aviation. So you can do all of these things, which can certainly open up opportunities for consultancy and other independent arrangements, which if it grows large enough, it can get to the point where you can say, okay, maybe I can do this full time. So you don't have to worry about sort of just jumping ship from your formal 9 to 5 and then venturing into the unknown territory of online content creation. You can do it while you're enjoying the security of a 9 to 5. And then if it starts to feel like you can devote more time to it, then you can make that jump, right? Yeah. And I think if you did that, it'll also make you a lot more productive in your 9 to 5 because you have an added layer of security. Yes. You're not going to be easily compromised because, okay, so if they fire you, well, I got my other thing, right? Maybe your bosses might even respect you a little bit. All right, and that's another thing, because if you are able to command a big presence in online content creation, then your company might increase your importance within that company, because now you're not just an employee, now you are a brand. Something to think about.
You're ready to contribute to the bottom line.
Yeah.
All right. Can we send people to you who want to quit? And you advise them?
Yeah, sure. We can have a conversation anytime. So you can just look me up on RX Radio. Just go to rxradio.ug. That is our website there. There's all kinds of ways you can reach out to me, contact forms, emails, phone numbers, everything. Awesome. holler at me. Let's have a conversation. Maybe we can collaborate. That'll be nice.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. That's FatBoy on Creative Chaos Stream. Blessings.